Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever looked at someone and wondered, how are they still standing? How are they so grounded, so unshakable, in a world that constantly tries to pull them in every direction? I'm talking about Dave Chappelle. Yes, the comedian, the legend, the truth teller, but more than that, I'm talking about the man. Because behind the laughter, behind the stage, behind the mic, is a man who made a decision so powerful, so personal, and so transformative that it forever changed the course of his life. He chose Islam, not for the cameras, not for the followers, not for the fame. He chose Islam because his soul was searching for something the world couldn't give him. You know, we talk a lot about success, about climbing the ladder, about achieving, winning, dominating. But what happens when you get to the top and your soul is still starving? Dave Chappelle tasted that. He had it all, multi-million dollar deals, soul, doubt shows, endless praise, but something inside him whispered, this isn't it. That voice. That whisper, it was the fitra, the natural pull of the soul toward its creator, and he followed it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not weakness. That's not a man retreating. That is a lion stepping away from the circus and reclaiming his roar. You see, Islam didn't put a leash on Dave Chappelle, it took the chains off. It gave him clarity, direction, peace, and here's what's amazing. He didn't have to scream it from rooftops. He didn't need to argue. He didn't need to prove anything, because when you're grounded in faith, you don't chase validation. You walk in certainty. That's the essence of Islam. It's not just a religion. It's a blueprint for life. It gives you the tools to stand firm when the world shakes, to speak truth when it's uncomfortable, to walk away from millions when your soul knows it's not aligned. You think that's easy, it's not, but that's power. Power to say no when everyone expects you to say yes. Power to be different in a world obsessed with fitting in. Power to say, I belong to God, even when the world says you belong to us. Dave Chappelle didn't lose his edge when he embraced Islam, he sharpened it. His comedy got deeper, his message got bolder, his presence got louder, even in silence, because when your heart is at peace, your voice carries weight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the truth. When your inner world is right, the outer world can't shake you. That's what Islam gave Dave Chappelle, not a new identity, but his real identity. Not a script to follow, but a purpose to live. And you have that same opportunity. Ask yourself, are you living by default? Or by design, are you chasing noise? Or building silence that speaks volumes? Because the moment you connect to something bigger than yourself, like Dave did, everything changes. Your confidence rises. Your clarity sharpens. Your life becomes driven by meaning, not just motion. So if you take one thing away today, let it be this. You don't need the world to understand your journey. You just need the courage to start walking it. That's Dave Chappelle's Islam, and that, my friends, is real power. Islam didn't limit Dave Chappelle, it liberated him, and that's what the world often misunderstands about faith. When people look at a religion like Islam from the outside, they see boundaries, rules, discipline. But they don't see the freedom inside those boundaries. Real freedom isn't doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's chaos. That's a lack of control disguised as freedom. And if you've ever been successful in any field, you know this. Freedom without structure destroys people. Dave understood that. He looked around at the noise of the world, Hollywood, fame, media, opinions, pressure, temptations, and he knew it wasn't freedom. He knew it was a trap. Because when your identity is based on applause, you're only as good as your last performance. When your peace depends on public opinion, you become a slave to the crowd. But when you ground your identity in something eternal, when your worth comes from the one who never changes, that's when you truly walk free. That's what Islam gave Dave. It didn't take away his freedom. It gave it back, the freedom to say no, the freedom to walk away, the freedom to be who he really is without compromise, and it wasn't loud. It wasn't performative. That's what makes it even more powerful. It was quiet, it was still, and in that stillness, Dave found the kind of peace that doesn't fade when the cameras turn off. You see, the world wants to sell you chaos and call it success. It wants you distracted, disconnected, and disoriented, because then you're easier to control. But Dave found something they couldn't control. He found God. He found a faith that centered him, disciplined him, and anchored him in the middle of a storm. And that's not limiting. That's the greatest form of liberation you'll ever experience. True power is walking away from what the world calls success. It takes real strength to step back when the spotlight is shining directly on you. Most people crave attention. They crave approval. They spend their lives chasing validation from the world. And when they get it, they become addicted to it. But not Dave. Dave Chappelle walked away from a $50 million contract. Let that sink in. He didn't just walk away from a paycheck. He walked away from the expectations that came with it, from the pressure to conform, from the demand to entertain even when it meant compromising his values. The world called it crazy, but what the world calls crazy is often what clarity looks like. Dave didn't lose his mind, he found his soul. He understood something most people never learn. Success at the cost of self-respect is failure. And sometimes the most successful thing you can do is walk away, not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing alignment over achievement. You're choosing integrity over image. That's real power. That's the kind of strength that makes people uncomfortable because it's rare. We've been conditioned to believe that staying in the game, no matter what, is the sign of strength. But let me tell you, walking away when the game is rigged against your soul, that's legendary. Dave didn't walk away to disappear. He walked away to rediscover, to realign, to reconnect with something deeper. That decision didn't destroy him. It elevated him, and when he came back sharper, stronger, wiser, more grounded. Because power isn't just about holding on, it's about knowing when to let go, and when you let go of the world, you get to hold on to yourself. Spiritual clarity brings mental mastery. There's no hack around that. There's no shortcut. If your spirit is confused, your mind is chaotic. If your soul is wandering, your thoughts will be scattered. That's why we see so many high performers fall apart. They've mastered technique, but not self. They've built success externally, but internally they're lost. Dave Chappelle didn't just become more mentally clear. He became spiritually aligned, and that changed everything. Clarity is not about thinking harder, it's about feeling deeper. It's about anchoring yourself in something that doesn't change when the world does. That's what Islam offered Dave, a daily connection to the divine, a structure that pulled him out of his head and into his heart, a discipline that brought his chaos into calm, and from that calm came clarity, clarity of purpose, clarity of thought, clarity of decision making. You can't lead others until you've led yourself. You can't make an impact until you've made peace with who you are. And Dave understood that. You watch his interviews now, and there's a stillness in him, a groundedness. It's not the stillness of someone who's tired. It's the stillness of someone who's found his center. And when you find that center, your mind becomes a weapon of precision. You don't react. You respond. You don't drift. You decide. You don't collapse under pressure. You expand. Spiritual clarity sharpens your mental edge. And when the inside is solid, the outside bends to your will. That's how Dave Chappelle went from being a brilliant comedian to a cultural philosopher. That's how he went from cracking jokes to dropping truth. Because clarity isn't a gift, it's a result of deep work, soul work, the kind of work most people avoid. But when you do it, everything changes. You move different, you speak different, you live different. When the soul is grounded, the storm becomes irrelevant. That's what most people miss. They spend their entire lives trying to control the weather, trying to make everything around them peaceful, safe, predictable. But that's not life. Life is messy, it's chaotic, it's unpredictable. You can't always calm the storm, but you can calm yourself. You can build an anchor so deep within you that no matter how hard life tries to shake you, you stand firm. That's what Islam gave Dave Chappelle, not a perfect life, but a solid core, a spiritual grounding that made him unshakable. He didn't stop facing challenges, he just stopped being controlled by them. The storm still came, but it didn't own him. Because when your soul is rooted in truth, chaos can't uproot you. And here's the powerful part, When people see someone calm in the storm, they stop and watch. They wonder, how is he doing that? That's why Dave became not just a comedian, but a voice of wisdom. Because he didn't just survive the storm, he spoke from within it. And people felt that. You don't fake peace. You don't fake wisdom. You either have it or you don't, and he had it. Not because he avoided pain, but because he transformed it. His faith gave him that power. His belief in God wasn't just a religious label, it was a lifeline. It gave him a perspective the world couldn't shake. It made him bulletproof, not in body, but in spirit. That's the kind of power that outlasts trends. That's the kind of strength that makes legends. So stop trying to make life easy. Make your soul strong. Because when your roots run deep, no wind can move you. You don't need to escape the storm. You just need to be deeper than it. You can be unapologetically real when you're spiritually rooted. That's what makes someone magnetic, not just charisma, not just talent, but truth, the kind of truth that doesn't bend, the kind of truth that makes people lean in because they feel it in their gut. Dave Chappelle became a truth teller not because it was trendy, but because it was real. He stopped trying to please the crowd. He stopped trying to be accepted. And ironically, that's what made him more powerful. Because when you don't need the world's approval, you're free to speak from your soul. And that kind of authenticity is rare. Most people are performing, even off stage they're acting, but Dave rooted himself in something deeper. Islam gave him that foundation. It taught him that his worth isn't determined by followers, ratings, or applause. It's determined by God, and when that's your foundation, everything changes. You stop censoring yourself. You stop editing your truth to make it palatable. You speak what's real, and you stand on it even when it's uncomfortable. That's the definition of being unapologetic. Not being reckless, not being aggressive, but being honest. Honest with yourself, honest with others. Dave's comedy got sharper because it came from a place of truth. His perspective got deeper because it was grounded in values. He didn't just tell jokes. He held up a mirror to society, and people listened, not because he was loud, but because he was real. That's what happens when you're spiritually rooted. You become a mirror, a light, a force. You stop chasing trends and start shaping them. You stop echoing the world and start challenging it. And the most powerful part, you do it without needing permission. That's the beauty of spiritual alignment. You don't need to fit in when you're standing on truth. You don't need applause when you're already accepted by the Creator. You don't need to be everything to everyone because you're already enough.